This is not good. Okay, great start, Hayley. Inadequate Mother podcast here, guys. Welcome to this week's episode. And I am not talking about being an inadequate mother. I have not got a wonderful guest to bring about some incredible conversation, such as last week's with Jassa Alawalia, who talked about his book, Both Not Half, and redefining mixed heritage and how we can be both and not half, as someone that is being told to use the language quarter caste and half caste. It's been a journey. That was an incredible conversation last week. Please go and check it out. But if you are of the sign language community or the deaf community, and you have followed my Instagram and you have asked me a question about my professional occupation or learning sign language, this is an episode for you, because I'm constantly inundated with questions and just people just wanting a little bit of a motivation, a kick up the bum, or validation, really, because learning sign language is a hell of a journey, and we're going to get into it today. But I'm going to give you the answers to all the questions that you've given me on Instagram, and I thank you for all that engagement that you've given over the years, and I am going to try and make the content that you want rather than what I want. So let's get into it. I am, as you know, or you might not know, a sign language interpreter. And I'll just give you a brief explanation of my journey, how I got here. I literally love my job and I pinch myself daily. I'm kind of, between you and me, talking to someone. And like when I meet new people or I, develop these relationships with people, one of the first things we kind of learn about is just how much I love my life and how proud I am to have got to where I've got to. And a lot of that's to do with my family, my kids, surviving a lot of trauma, healing and stuff. But a lot of it's to do with just the job that I do. I just love it. And it was a long slog to get here, because I am not from the deaf community. I didn't grow up in the deaf community. I did not know a single deaf person when I decided I was going to be a sign language interpreter. I remember telling my dad and him looking at me with that puzzled, say what, face that he used to do on a regular basis, because my wonderful, potentially ADHD brain would come up with these crazy ideas. But this was one that him to this day says, fair play, Hayley, fair play. I thought you were crazy back then, but I see you moving. I see the life you have. I see the career you have. Something up there was looking down on you when they gave you that random thought to be a sign language interpreter. And that's essentially what it was. It was such a random thought. I remember being heavily pregnant with my first daughter, coming up to 19 years ago. And I was working as a promotional model, i.e. I was trying to get paid because people told me I was attractive and that was my value to the world, my looks. Because 20 years ago, that's what you were told when you were a little girl, or I was. I was never encouraged to really go to uni. And I was giving out leaflets for a Korean company, Samsung, at Crufts. Now, why would Samsung, a Korean company, be at Crufts? Well, it's because historically, Koreans ate dogs. So I was continuously asked throughout the day whether, me or my people on the stand ate dogs, which was delightful. And these Korean people literally gave me a spot to stand in and said, stand here and don't move. Now, part of the perks of doing promotional modelling is that you had the freedom to kind of wander around and explore. I got to talk to random people. I was 20, just thinking like I just wanted to do something interesting and free. But yeah, he was like, stand in this spot. And I remember standing in the spot. If you tell someone with ADHD to stand still, they're going to physically be in pain. And I just remember it was the most painful experience, because I was also at the time trying to hide that I was pregnant. Now, I remember having that feeling and just thinking, I've got to get a proper job. I can't give birth to this child, who I knew was going to be extremely academic because her father is extremely academic. And I thought to myself, I can't be doing this job and have such an intellectual child. think of a career, and I literally looked up and saw a couple of people in Crufts signing, and I went, oh, I'll do that. And I literally followed them around Crufts going, I could do that. I could do that. And that's how that's how the idea grew. And the first deaf person I ever met was my teacher at Wolverhampton University, which I decided to go down the university route. One, because my best friend bullied me into it. She was like, go and do your degree. Two, because a degree meant that, I was, accessing the funding that would be available for me, the student loans, the grants, etc. If you're a single mom, there was back then some extra grants for you, and childcare as well paid for. So I was like, this is a no-brainer. Even if I don't like it, I might as well use the access I can get to funding for a degree. And I would recommend anybody who has not done a degree, think about going and getting a degree, just because there's so much access out there. When I was young at school, to go to university, you had to be the brainiest in the school, but it's not the case anymore. Yeah, it was a brilliant thing and a brilliant decision, and I do not regret it. So that's kind of how it happened. But I remember going into university and going, this is a bit of me, this is. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of everything about this is a bit of me. The connection, the communication, the history, the culture, the vibe, the type of people that are around it, the directness of deaf people, the culture, just everything about it, like the politics even, because I love a bit of politics, I love a bit of philosophy, right and wrong. I remember the lecturer turning around and saying, some deaf people want their child to be deaf. And I was horrified. I remember thinking, that can't be right. That's never right. But now, obviously, further along, I was like, of course a mother would want their child to be deaf if they're deaf, and to have that first language and that known experience and perspective of the world. Yes, you're going to be concerned about the barriers that they face, but you're going to feel better, adequate and equipped to guide that child if that child is deaf and you are in fact deaf also. So the whole aspect of that degree really opened my eyes to something that I knew I would just love my eyes to get open to more and more. Basically, I knew I couldn't get enough. And I know there's so many interpreters that must share that feeling, where they're like, this is something I'm not going to be able to get enough of. And I'm just going to throw this caveat in there as well, because this is something I've held on to when I've, been going through this journey. And my 20s was a shit show. It was a shit show. And I'm sure at some point down the line, subscribe to this channel and you'll get more insight, I'm sure, over the years. And I will share with you how much of a shit show my 20s was. But one of the biggest driving forces to get me through the qualifications to become an interpreter was watching my mother, who is, the reason why I talk so much about feeling inadequate. She died of alcoholism whilst I was at uni. And my point being, I saw the decline in her mental health when me and my sister reached teenage years, and her identity as a mother shifted, and she'd been this go-getter mom, a lot like myself. Like she was very ambitious and she never held back, and she had her own business, but that failed. And when me and my sister kind of moved out and moved away, she was completely lost. And I felt like she'd peaked too soon, or she tried to peak too soon. So for me, I wanted a career that was a long process, so that I could, in fact, focus on myself healing and my kids growing, but then also have that stepping stone towards something that wasn't going to peak too soon, and that was going to be able to challenge me later on in life when my children were kind of flying the nest, so that I still had that stimulation, I still had that kind of purpose, let's say. So for any mums out there that are thinking, oh God, this is taking forever. Just embrace it, embrace the time, allow yourself to have the time, and know that when you're going through your midlife crisis, you want to have things that invigorate you. You want to have things that challenge you, that motivate you, that you can be proud of. You don't want to peak too soon. So that's just my first little chuck, or this nugget that I'm putting out there, because that was my experience, and that's one thing I kept at the forefront of my mind, is learning that as moms we go through a lot, and when you lose your kind of everyday tasks, let's say cooking dinner and all this, and you've got time on your hands, you want to be able to throw your hand at something else. Anyway, I had someone also message out and say to me, I want to learn sign language. I want to be an interpreter for my little girl because I want to help others that have been let down by society. Now, that really ties into motherhood as well, doesn't it? Because I think when you do become a mum, your whole perspective changes, your values change, what you want in life changes. And for me, I definitely realised that in order to feel adequate as a mother, I wanted to just do something that was of high value to society. So that was another reason why I felt that being a sign language interpreter was for me, because I didn't just want to raise kids because, God, I didn't have a clue how to do that. But I also wanted to do something to better the world that they go into. Basically, I might inadequately fuck it up, throughout their childhood. But at least I would have tried to have made the world a better place, more inclusive, So I think for all the people out there that are just kind of inspired and motivated and they've got it in their heart to do, it's because there's something within you that you really value about sign language that you've allowed to come into your purpose to help better society. And whether that be for your kids or for your nieces, nephews, the future generations, that's part of who we are as humans. And I think that kind of thing doesn't leave you. So if you're not someone that's motivated by getting rich or we all need money and we all want to be successful, but if you know that your biggest driving force is just part of one of your high values and to make a better world, then that's something that I've definitely acknowledged in my decisions. Yeah, I think acknowledging what motivates us to do things that are gonna F with us. I'm gonna try and not swear because I know that some people really don't like swearing. I get told off. But it's gonna mess with you. This journey will mess with your self-esteem. It will mess with your cognitive processing. It will mess with your social circles. It will mess with your resilience and whether you can continue. It will just mess with so many things. So understanding what put you there in the first place, what motivated you, why am I like this? Why do I like this? And understanding it on a deeper level is really important. I was there because I was becoming a mom and I wanted to make a contribution to a better world. And I'd always been that person that everyone loved to talk to. So when someone asked me, what's your gift? I really pondered on it and I'm like, I don't know, because I was an academic and I'm dyslexic as hell. But someone said, what's your gift? And everybody has a gift. Everyone was born with a gift. Mine, I think, being that person that people like to talk to, I thought, well, it's communication, and it really is. So I was there for that reason. I was there to try and do a career that was not only going to give me some security later on in life, because financially, I'm not going to lie, it's not going to pay immediately. But I was a single mom that at the time had a lot of benefits in terms of childcare paid for and things like that. So it helped me out as a single mom. And my heart truly went out to the mums that were married because they didn't get those benefits and they had to put themselves through uni. And, a lot of people fund this kind of qualification themselves. And the government really has got to do something about it because there's not enough of us. And, they've legalised sign language and made it a legal requirement, but they haven't thought to think, is there enough interpreters? Maybe we should help out, the qualification bodies to make enough training programs. That's another conversation. See how I waffle? See how my ADHD brain goes? But yes, so for me, university was great just because of the varied access to resources. Also because having never even interacted with the deaf community at all, for me, it was extremely valuable to learn about the culture, the history, the theories, the linguistical elements, and do modules that were really thorough. You're not going to get that with something like Signature. Doing a university degree was also like doing a deaf studies degree. And you kind of need that if you're going to work in this field. You need to understand the community that you're going to serve. So, if had I grown up in the deaf community, that might not be as necessary. And you can kind of sometimes find that they're coders. They don't really need to go to uni. But, someone that's, completely ignorant to the intricate beauty of the deaf community, then the university was brilliant for that. But I would say my strongest driving force was to do with the flexibility, the support with my kids, and the financial elements. And saying that, after I qualified, I decided to go and train for a bit and just kind of work as a trainee. And then when my trainee badges ran out and I wasn't eligible to renew them, I had to be on a course. I really struggled to get on a course, partly because of my confidence, partly because of the course provision or course providers. They're few and far between. Some of them aren't great. And yeah, I just struggled and I lost motivation due to a lot of trauma and life incidences, which again I will share at some point. But I was just healing myself, and the thought of going back to do my portfolio so I could get fully qualified was just something I just couldn't even process it. So I worked as a CSW in colleges, which was fine. And I didn't even know if I did. Half of me thought I was going to give it up. I was beside myself, actually. I was going through some really dark times and I was just working as a CSW. I wasn't necessarily enjoying it, but there was definitely worse jobs to do. But I just didn't feel like I was progressing, because you end up working with kind of the same student every day, in the same environment every day. You're not really understanding it to any great level. And I wasn't around enough other interpreters and signers to be able to engross myself with enough language so that my language was growing. I kind of felt a bit stagnant in that CSW period. And that was a period of about 7 years. I had qualified with my level 6 from university. And at that point, in 2013, which is the year my daughter was born, so I literally graduated when my daughter was born. You could either graduate with a level 3 or graduate with a level 6. Now I kid you not, because I was pregnant throughout all my exams, I literally got my paper and it said level 6, and I was like, I got the level 6. I didn't get the level 3. I was like, are you sure? And I was convinced that the teachers just felt sorry for me because I'd just given birth. That's how inadequate I felt. I literally handed them back the paper and went, no, I think you've made a mistake. No, I was one of the students that needed to qualify with a level 3. And they were like, no, Hayley, you got level 6. I was like, no. You just know I've been through a lot of shit. You feel sorry for me. Come on. We all know I'm not, I'm level 3. And they were like, you're borderline, Hayley. You didn't fly through. You didn't get level 6 like, easy peasy, like she's definitely level 6. I was definitely borderline. And that's almost worse, isn't it, when you're borderline? You're like, is she going to pass? Is she not going to pass? Because there may be days then in my career, in the upcoming months of when I got my level 6, where I was, in fact, level 3. I woke up with a level 3 and I went and got on a job that was qualified for a level 6. And I was just having a bad day and performing at a level 3. So in my head, my brain was going, this is just not going to be great. You will always have those kind of bad, negative thoughts where you've been given an opportunity to move forward, but something in your head is holding you back and you're going, no, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. And that is just fear, isn't it? But somewhere, someone has seen something in you and gone, you're ready to move forward, you are. Now, that doesn't mean you're necessarily shit hot like your colleagues, because we all know we've got those, those students in the class that have been signing their whole life and they're just flying through everything, and you're there like with your hands and you're just nervous and you don't really know what you're doing. Because I was definitely that girl. And, you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't be a level 6, or I shouldn't be at this level, or I'm not performing today. And that's normal. It really is normal. But I think the one thing you have to just identify is the negative feeling. And literally think of the negative feeling and go, you're having a negative feeling, now piss off. Because your cognitive brain is what's going to be in charge of your performance as an interpreter. It's going to be in charge of how you connect and communicate and understand in terms of your receptive skills. If you're trying to look at someone and think, what are you saying? But you're also talking to yourself saying, you're not performing very well today, Hayley. You're obviously not going to get it all. So it's like controlling how your brain is talking to yourself. Whether you're going to wake up in the morning, have a little conversation with yourself and go, Hayley, today you might not be that good. Today you might miss some information. Today you might make a mistake, but that's okay. That's the type of conversations I want to promote. Be inadequate, accept that we're inadequate, and your brain will develop a lot quicker and do a lot better. Because when we're kind to ourselves, we do grow better. So, do I talk really fast? I just feel like I'm talking really fast. Having a BSL break, but keeping the rhythm going with self-study is really difficult. Any tips and advice? Okay, so I would say that I've never really broken, like I had a break, but I definitely consider the period where I braked in my education and just kind of coasted as a CSW as a long period where I really didn't know whether I was going to go any further. So I can completely relate to that feeling of just coasted and then like not knowing how to progress, because let's face it, we're all busy and it's like, okay, what else do I do? And there's not loads of courses available where you can just be immersing yourself in it, of an evening every week, or going to Deaf Club every week. These things are really hard to find and it's really hard. So first of all, just be kind to yourself. I was sometimes made to feel really bad that I wasn't partaking in the like deaf clubs and the because it was a university environment. There was a lot of what they call unions and things like that, like student nights out and things. Because I was a mum, I had other responsibilities, and my journey was different to a lot of people in my class. And sometimes they kind of made me feel, at the time I thought it was them trying to make me feel like I wasn't committed the same way they were committed. But the reality is it was my insecurities talking to me and making me feel like I was inadequate because I wasn't doing the same things they were. But I just had to accept that. I had to accept that, my journey can't go at the same rate as somebody else's. And it was almost like that. That journey in itself was what I needed more than sign language. Humbling myself to go, Hayley, you're not going to be the best at this. Hayley, you're not going to whiz through this and, be better than everyone else. I remember I was engaged to an American man. That's another story. And I was over in America. And in America, they've all got superhero complexes. They all, they want to be the best at this. And when I told someone what I did, they were like, oh, so you're going to be like the best sign language interpreter. And immediately I went, no, actually I'm not. And I remember thinking to myself, that's not you, Hayley. You want to be the best at everything. But something had humbled me to say, well, you're not a coder and it's not your kind of innate first language. So is it even possible for you to be the best interpreter? It might be, because I know loads of good interpreters. that English is their second language, of course. But at the time, I really had to humble myself and accept that I wasn't going to be amazing at this in terms of my production, my signs, or my receptive skills. And one of the things that I've completely gone off the question, I'm completely aware. I will get back to the question, ADHD. I will get back to answering the question, how to manage a break when you take a study break. But the point I want to make about this is when you humble yourself to say, okay, I don't need to be the best at this. In terms of my production, my sign language, my receptive skills, and you just say, what other things am I really good at? So like I zoomed in, I would try my best to focus on the things that I'm good at. That might just be being able to make people laugh. Like literally, I used to say to myself, okay, at every job, I know I'm going to probably ask them to repeat the spelling because I'm dyslexic as hell. I know I'm going to probably miss something because I'm a trainee. But what I am going to do is make that person smile. What I am going to do is make that person glad they met me. And that's it. Like, so many deaf people say, I'd rather have a substandard signer with a good attitude than have a really shit hot, like signing like a mofo, like brilliant interpreter that's got a bad attitude and thinks too highly of themselves. Deaf people have been saying that for years, and I clung to that. And I was like, even if I'm not going to be the best interpreter or the best signer, I'm going to have the best attitude and I'm going to make people smile. So think about the things that you are good at and recognize them as a value. They might not be on your exam paper and you might not be getting ticks for that, but I can kid you not, when it comes to serving a community, these are things that are of value and of skill. So keep them at the forefront of your mind and keep the negative shit that we like to think about ourselves, like, I'm making too many mistakes, I'm asking them to repeat themselves too much. Get that shit to the back of your head. But back to the question. God, I'm so freaking ADHD. Back to the question, taking a study break. Okay, my advice to this person was, with anything that we do, it like I've just when I started going to the gym, like it's the same with gym and discipline with learning sign language and developing the habit of going to the gym. You just have to do a little, a lot, so that it becomes like brushing your teeth. In the morning, we do not think about brushing our teeth. We just wake up, we go and brush our teeth. We don't even think, I need to brush my teeth. I mean, it's just something we automatically do. And we don't think, am I good at brushing my teeth? We're just brushing our teeth. And when you do exercise in the morning, like it's just something you've always done and always will, then it will become easier. So when you're trying to study plan or make a plan so that you don't lose your language after a study break, make sure it's doable, it's small, it's enjoyable as well, so that you do it. For me, social media was a massive game changer in terms of being able to talk about things that interest me, even to the camera here now. Like, if I had something in me that I wanted to say, saying it to the camera and signing it meant that I enjoyed saying it, and then I was left with a motivation to go and find out how I signed it, whether I looked up the word, whether I asked some friends, how would you sign this? And just do things that you enjoy. Forget your topics that the course leader says, oh, we've got to cover animals, or we've got to cover, talking to one another about this, the weather change or something. Develop a habit that's small. Maybe it might be your journal. Maybe it might be, I'm going to interpret, 1 minute of how I feel about my day, or how I feel about my kids, or just something that, or it might be something like a hobby you've got and you want to unpack that. It's just extremely important, I feel, that if you are taking a break with sign language, you make some small commitments to get your brain working in an interpreter capacity. Now, that's if you have a desire to be an interpreter. Obviously, if you have a desire to just learn sign language, that could be different. You could just, I don't know, 1 week learn 5 new signs and add it to your vocabulary list, and then engage with some community groups. Because, and I kind of didn't want to say this because I know how hard it is for people to connect with community groups, especially with so many closing at the minute. But the reality is your language really does only progress when you connect with community groups. I would try and look online and reach out to your local deaf community. And I know it sounds a little bit cringy and a little bit weird now to say it out loud. But like back when I was learning, it really was a thing to just try and befriend a deaf person, make them your little pal, so that you could be able to interact, and they'd make you their little pal as like a hearing person that they could use, you know, on a basis when they needed a hearing person to help them out. And a lot of people have messaged me over the years saying, I just feel like it's insincere making a friendship just because I want to learn the language. It doesn't feel genuine, like I'm begging, please be my friend. It can be a bit like weird, can't it? Especially when a lot of these people are like old deaf guys that, you know, realistically in the real world, if they weren't deaf, you wouldn't be sat there talking to them. So it can feel really not genuine. But the reality is the deaf community have had to manage this reality that most of their life, hearing people aren't going to learn unless they're around deaf people. So it's just been the name of the game. So yeah, if you're not lucky enough to have access to deaf people, then yeah, I would just try your best to go online and connect with people that you can be genuine with. That's going to be a game changer, because if you find like a deaf person that likes yoga, for example, and you can go to yoga once a week, even like that 10 minutes before yoga, it's something, isn't it? I am thinking about creating some sign language communities where people can connect and practice with their sign language. It's not something I've explored to any great depth, so I'm just putting it out there, but watch this space, who knows, we can maybe create something, because community is really important. I can't believe I've waffled for nearly 40 minutes and I've not even got through half of like your questions. Jeez. Okay, this might need to be a 2-parter because my head's hurting a little bit. So guys, I've given you a little brief kind of, I don't know, I feel like that was a brain fart. I don't feel like that was actually good. I have such good intentions and oh God. I have such good intentions and I write things out and everything, and I'm trying to, I can just waffle, man. I can really waffle. So I'm going to make another episode where I'm going to cover things such as learning challenges and study tips. I'm going to touch on the emotional roadblocks and the self-doubt and the self-esteem, the confidence, things like that I've had to get my head around, and maybe offer you some advice, and just kind of bring those career dreams into fruition and help you along your way. I'm sorry if I just waffled and didn't give you anything of value, but tune into the next episode because we're definitely going to cover it all. And yeah, keep asking me questions. Find me on Hayley Brown and Co on Instagram. Someone messaged me, I feel so much inadequacy. Love that you're using the word inadequacy on my BSL journey, and I never allow myself to stop and think how far I've done. It's so true. We really and truly love to put the negative at the front and the positive at the back, and I think it's like that daily reminder to go and turn it around. Stick the negative, the one comment or the one negative feeling or the one fuck up you did, and stick that where it belongs, and put the amazing things that you've done at the forefront of your head, because it's not about, you know, where we want to get to. It's about where we've been and where we are right now, and you are exactly where you need to be at the exact time you need to be at it. So do not be hard on yourself. Everyone's journey is individual, and as long as we can support one another in this community, it is all good. Please engage. Please ask away any more questions that you'd like to contribute to this series, because it is going to be a continued series where I'll do little solo episodes for anybody learning sign language or thinking about being a sign language interpreter. Mwah!